Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this thing we're doing. The number one simp podcast in the world. We're talking about 500 Days of Summer. Today, Alan, I want to know your opinions on this movie first, since I'm pretty sure you didn't really know anything about it until I brought it up.
Yeah, I never actually knew. Well, I mean, I've seen some scenes a long way back, especially that expectations versus reality scene. Pretty much this was my first blind review of the movie. And I must say, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I really liked the pacing of the film and the non-linear structure that the movie provides for its timeline. One more thing that I noted, like when I first started watching, is that the protagonist, he's played by an actor who is featured in Inception, I think. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I think. Yeah, he seems to be the only familiar face though in that crowd. This movie is, well, it was fun to watch, of course. It has its own unexpected comedic moments. I like how it's pretty unconventional as well. It's not your typical love story. It even makes note of that in the very beginning of the movie when it's like, this is not a love story, with that deep narrator voice. It's a visually appealing movie. It's more of an eyegasm, if I have to describe it, which is a fitting term, I guess. A fitting term, My eyes were pretty satisfied with what they've seen while I was watching the movie. Yeah, the length is pretty appropriate for the plot, and overall, I enjoyed it. What about you?
One question first. If this film was an eyegasm to you, then what was Scott Pilgrim? Or Fully Cooley even?
They were their own separate eyegasms. I would say that 500 Days of Summer was more of, pre-cum to my eyegasm. Same goes with Fully Cooley. But Scott Pilgrim was pure eyegasm. I actually loved that movie.
When this film came out in 2009, this was basically considered like a sleeper hit. Because it's like a super indie film, similar to how like Napoleon Dynamite and Scott Pilgrim are also very indie.
Mm-hmm.
Even like the way it's structured with like the Pulp Fiction, different points of time and narrative, non-linear narrative type structure. Like you don't really see many movies doing that unless it's like showing a flashback or whatever. It's kind of meant to, this whole film is kind of meant to be a bit like a dream sequence from Tom's perspective. Because the whole film is kind of like based on true events, but not like fully. So like the writer of the film, his name is Scott Neustadter. Basically, he wrote this film as like from his own personal experience, I guess, where he went through something very similar. He went to university with this girl, and he eventually fell in love with her, but she didn't really have the same feelings towards him back. And then in the end, they ended up separating. And yeah, that's basically it.
Oh yeah, as you mentioned, in the beginning of the movie, there's this side note which mentions a person named Jenny Beckman. It's like, this is a story purely based on fiction and not based on any particular person in real life. This goes for you, Jenny Beckman, bitch. I'm looking right now. Yeah, it's actually a real girl who dumped one of the screenwriters, Scott Neustadter. And Summer is based on this particular person, and the script is kind of a reflection of the real life relationship.
I think he showed her the script, and if I remember right, she said that she relates more with Tom than with Summer.
Bruh. That's ironic. That's actually very, very ironic.
I think, because even when this film came out, pretty much everyone hated Summer, but that's like because you get like the protagonist perspective and you want to root for the protagonist, whatever.
Yeah.
But like looking at it from a, I guess, more objective, like without the rose tinted glasses, is kind of like Tom is kind of, I won't say he's a dickhead, but he is a dickhead, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Because like Tom is like he's a hopeless romantic, basically. He's like that one guy, I guess like all of us, because he grew up on like romantic movies and like always having a happy ending, whatever. You go off and get married, have kids, whatever. He puts his happiness all into this one person, which is very unfair and is also very unhealthy.
Yeah.
Because you're just setting yourself up for disappointment and shit. And he's kind of like, he can't distinguish like the tropes of a romantic film from real life and how shit is actually supposed to happen. So like whenever Summer doesn't live up to these expectations that he's put onto her, or like these ideas that he has about her, he'll end up like lashing out and calling her a bitch or whatever. Like even at the beginning of the movie when he's like, "Hey Summer, how are you?" When they get into the elevator and she's like, "Good." And he goes to his friends and tells them, "That fucking bitch, she spent the whole weekend with the guy at the gym. Ugh, I just know it. oh, I'm so over her.
Yeah.
Ultimate incel.
Yeah, you know, like, oddly enough, I relate to Tom. Well, not contemporarily, of course. Now I'm not that kind of imaginary person, but like, you know, I was kind of that guy. I was very into science, and like, every time I saw a quote unquote red flag, I would just talk absolute shit about that person. I was a dickhead at that time. Kind of what Tom goes through, as you mentioned, like he sets himself up for, you know, pure disappointment and eventually depression. It's how I actually used to also do it as well. Tom in this way is pretty relatable because like he is a reflection of real world situation, and it's more of a moral of the story. It's to not give in to expectations. It's to allow yourself some room to breathe and always think there are more opportunities awaiting instead of just focusing solely on one goal. Wow, I think this is the most I've been articulate in a podcast episode. I just said that sentence just relentlessly. I'm amazing. Kind of the moral of the story here is to, it's not to have low expectations. It's to just not kind of obsess yourself over this particular goal that you have in your mind. Instead, like giving yourself room to breathe and stuff.
100%. When you were talking about rose-tinted glasses, there is, well, when I was doing research for this movie, some of the videos that I watched had talked about, basically there's this quote in BoJack Horseman where one of the characters says to BoJack, when you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags. And that 100% applies to this movie.
Yeah.
Tom kind of just always looked at Summer with rose-tinted glasses. And even when she was completely honest and upfront about what type of relationship she wanted, first off, he didn't acknowledge them. And he kind of just went into the relationship thinking eventually she might change her mind, which is not a good mindset to go into with any relationship with any person ever, thinking you're going to change them, because forcing change just never ends up working out.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of like a reflection of a real psychological effect of having a relationship, or like, I guess, a naive mindset. It's that kind of hiding yourself from all the bad stuff that's going on because you're aware that something bad is happening at the moment, and yet your subconsciousness is willing to ignore it. Well, I mean, the memory is preserved, but you don't make an emotional emphasis on that particular issue. It's just there, you know. Our subconsciousness willingly ignores these red flags to preserve our sense of, you know, optimism and that everything is picture perfect and stuff. And actually, you know what? Like, talking about some tropes, I see some similarities between, like, 500 Days of Summer and Scott Pilgrim in terms of, you know, this female lover type theme. Because in Scott Pilgrim and in 500 Days of Summer, this trope of manic pixie dream girl, right?
Yeah.
If you recall from our Scott Pilgrim episode, we talked about Ramona Flowers, who is a stereotypical manic pixie dream girl. And the girl in 500 Days of Summer, I'm gonna hold that thought for a bit, but just to go off the topic. When I first heard about this movie, I thought 500 Days of Summer was gonna feature some kind of a time loop. I thought it implied that in the summer, there are 500 days, and I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. So like the protagonist is stuck in some kind of a time loop.
There's only 104 days.
So Summer represents the manic pixie dream girl because she has her own philosophy. She's just like Ramona Flowers. She's like, oh, I don't believe in love. It's kind of a fantasy thing. And then it turns out she had around 3 or 5 exes before Tom's relationship. And well, those two characters are pretty different, Ramona Flowers and Summer. In a sense, they share similar philosophy about love, and eventually, kind of, by the end of the movie, in their own way, they achieve love, like Ramona Flowers and Scott Pilgrim and Summer with Another Man.
I agree. The manic pixie dream girl trope in this movie, I don't know, because I watched the movie twice, and the first time I definitely thought that Summer is definitely a manic pixie dream girl. All her motivations and like just the way she behaves throughout the movie, it feels like kind of just done so that Tom can progress and eventually learn a lesson at the end. But on my rewatch and after doing a little bit more research and like, I guess just taking in mind the framing of the movie, how everything is from Tom's perspective, I'm more like 50-50 on it now. Because there's the one interpretation where her being evasive teaches Tom his life lesson and whatever. And then there's the other perspective where she is her own independent person, but like just from the way the movie is framed and shot, it is kind of like done to show how possessive Tom is being of her because of all his beliefs about how love is supposed to be.
Right, I see.
Just to go back to like the rose tinted glasses thing, part of it is also like not seeing the red flags. Part of it is also because I think it's just like a fear of being rejected, I guess.
Yeah.
He's not really, because at the beginning of the movie, like one of the first signs is like that it's happened before with another girl. So like everything that's happening with Summer, or maybe not everything, but just like his general attitude towards her is not like something that isn't uncommon with Tom. So him having these rose tinted glasses is, or not wanting to see the red flags, I should say, is just like him not wanting to be alone. Because also he has like a very low opinion of himself, just like in the way he acts, staying in a dead-end job for 4 years, not wanting to become, or not trying to pursue becoming an architect until like after he's broken up with Summer or whatever. Like in the expectations versus reality scene, we don't really see him interacting with too many people aside from that one conversation he has with the random lady about like writing love cards or whatever he does for his job. And he does like the purposeful joke of switching around, making something disposable with buildings versus making something outlast with a card, like a self-deprecating thing. It's mainly like he's just super unhealthy, man. Like I understand how people can get like this, not only from the way our media conditions us or whatever, but also just from shit that we get told by older generations. Like, you'll hear shit like, I chased after your grandmother for like 5 years before she took me. And it doesn't, like, that type of shit don't really sound romantic. It's like, she settled for you because you were annoying her, or because everyone else was also shit, which is not, like, good, I guess.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I definitely agree. And I'm glad you mentioned that, since there's plenty of character development on that side as well, because toward the end of the film, when he begins to work on his subjects that has been pretty much the Chekhov's gun of the whole movie, his love for architecture, or at least, his small interests, and eventually, which implies that he gets a job as an architect, or something related. So, there are pretty silent, but visually noticeable signs that, he's improving on himself, because by the end, he's constantly wearing formal clothes. His hair is always sharpened. But I mean, that could be the case because he was preparing for his job interview. But other than that, I guess it's also kind of serves as a lesson once more. Alongside not setting high expectations for a particular goal, there's also like making sure that you do what you personally love, right? Alongside that, because it could mix together, right? You have a goal in mind, you're working on that, but don't ever like put too much into that. Always focus on many more things as well. Similarly to what Tom does, although he started doing his architecture after he broke up with Summer. But just a lesson to my dear viewers, we care for you, we want you to watch our podcast and have fun. If you have high expectations for a particular thing, don't, because we don't want you to become like Tom, smashing plates.
I think another lesson from this movie, I guess, is not putting, what you said, not putting all your eggs in one basket, but also not expecting people to change, and also not expecting one person to be your everything, because that is unfair and it's also impossible. Your mom can't be your wife unless you're in Alabama.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I agree with you. You wanted to mention something about how the movie was shot, right?
Oh yeah, because I mentioned earlier how it's meant to be like an indie film, basically. I feel like a lot of this is shot like a music video, I guess. Especially in like that plate smashing scene. I like the way he turns his head. It kind of reminds me of that one scene in Scott Pilgrim where they all turn to knives when she freaks out or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But then even in like the dream sequences and stuff, where like it goes into the black and white film and like he's a Norman playing chess against Cupid or whatever. Those types of scenes are very music video-esque, in my opinion. They're like very abstract. They get across the meaning of the film very well as well. Especially, I think my favorite scene in the movie is when they have the black and white scene of his friends, and then like one of them's talking about his dream girl and how like his partner is better than his dream girl because she's real. And then you got the other friend who's like, as long as she's cute and has a good rack. And then he's silent. I like that a lot because it shows that he doesn't actually know what he wants really. He's kind of just doing shit that's been programmed into him from all his media or whatever.
Yeah, I thought of that deeply as well, because like at first I didn't understand. I'm not a person with high motor skills, but like I thought about that and I had the exact same. Like it's an interesting take as well. Kind of adds to the lesson part as well.
100%. And I like that his sister is kind of like more mature than him when it comes to all this shit as well. It might also just be a little bit of social commentary, how like girls get into this like a little bit earlier than boys, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a social commentary. It might be about a particularly different topic. It's more of media consumption because, like you said, he was basing most of his relationship ideals from the media consumption, like romantic music and movies and stuff.
I mean, I guess we haven't really spoken about Summer too much. Like, we've spoken about her, but like, you know, from either Tom's perspective, like her relationship to Tom, and never like as a singular character, I guess. Just her by herself doing whatever she's doing.
Right.
I guess that also kind of feeds into the Manic Pixie Dream Girl thing, where like she is kind of a plot device in a way, but that's also because her character is so like bare bones. She is literally just like the stereotypical girl that you fall in love with. Not fully. She kind of is a little bit of a play on that, but like because I think part of her thing about like not believing in love in the beginning is like they say that her parents divorced, so I think that after that, with every type of relationship she just has low expectations, and she's like, you know what, I might as well have fun with this while it lasts.
Right.
Because I guess she just knows that not everything's gonna last, so she just tries to have fun with it, I guess.
Oh yeah, that really draws like the parallel between Tom's expectations of the relationship and hers. Because, like we mentioned before, Tom has very high expectations of his, romantic movements with Summer. Meanwhile, she goes into the relationship knowing that they might break up at some point. Summer on her own is a pretty deep character now that I think about it.
It's like conflicting beliefs on how a relationship is supposed to work.
Yeah.
But then also that's like, it's crazy that they go into the relationship, both of them knowing that they've got differing opinions on how a relationship is supposed to work. Even like in that bar scene when they have the conversation about it, they still willingly go into the relationship knowing that their views are like contradictory. So it's doomed to fail from the start.
Yeah.
But then I guess by the end of the movie, both of their perspectives shifts. Tom becomes an alpha male and Summer becomes a trad wife.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to say, I was thinking about this earlier. Do you remember the scene with the cat?
The cat.
It's the scene where Tom quits his job, and the scene starts with this lady talking about her cat like jumping off a building as like one of the postcards.
Oh yeah, now I remember. What about that?
That's Naruto.
What?
That lady, she voices Naruto in the English dub.
Oh,
for that series. I'll show you.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, is there anything else you want to talk about with this movie?
I kind of want to, like, it's a very small point to make, but it kind of reminds me of Wes Anderson, like the style of how the movie was filmed.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, like there's this use of coloring and use of camera movements. It's very conventional and linear, like how Wes Anderson does it. Not all the time, but like most significant points, like when showing expectations versus reality, and one scene showing Summer and Tom doing their own thing, like lying in bed. That seems so Wes Anderson to me for no particular reason. But that's all I wanted to say. It's a really cool movie. We absolutely recommend the viewers to watch it and analyze for their own. If you have any more suggestions about what we might have missed, or what you personally find interesting, or how you relate it to what you found in real life, or your own experiences with the relationship, comment down below.
I don't really have anything else about the movie.
Yeah, nothing much as well. I delivered my main points, so I'm very happy with how this turned out.
Okay, people. So that's the end of the podcast. So enjoy whatever it is you're about to do today. Don't die. I think that's my main message. And, don't try to change people, because that will backfire and you will end up lonely.
Yeah, and if you've set high expectations, you'll become like me, because I'm a sex addict.
Yeah! That's the end.
That's the end. Oh man, I'm a genius.
By the way, my 104 Days was a Phineas and Ferb reference, because you didn't get it.
Oh, right. My bad. I haven't watched that show a lot. We should review that show as well.
You never watched Phineas and Ferb?
I watched a few episodes of it, but like it was on TV, so the episodes were randomized. And I haven't watched it chronologically. I just want to... I want to watch it now. I really want to watch Phineas and Ferb.
That's crazy. The comments are gonna fucking flame you. Flame
but my defense, my bad.
My bad, bro.
That's all. My bad, bro.